Hi everyone, today I made a tutorial on how to do a two-light setup for studio flash photography. And today I'll be featuring the Godox AD100 Pro Mark II, along with the Godox X3 Pro trigger, and the Godox 72-inch white reflector umbrella. Now this video is by request, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, or if you have any questions, you can leave them down in the comments below. And if you'd like to support the work that I do here, I'll have my affiliate links to everything I'll be using, or you can buy me a coffee and make a donation. This channel wouldn't exist without your support, so thank you so much. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, so first let's pair up these AD100 Pro 2s to the Godox X3 Pro trigger. I'm going to go ahead and reset everything to factory defaults, so we're starting from scratch. So I'll just go into the menu, and I'll scroll down until I see reset. Now push on the clickable wheel here, scroll up, and then click on it again. And now we've reset this trigger. And then we'll do it on this one. Go ahead and reset. And we're all set. And then let's go ahead and reset the X3 Pro. We'll go into the menu, scroll up, and reset. Now let's go ahead and pair these up. So first thing I'm going to do is go into the wireless menu on the X3 Pro trigger, and I'm going to scan for a clear channel, and that'll help minimize misfires. This takes about 30 seconds to go through. When that's done, we'll come back. All right, now I'm just going to pick a channel here in the middle, and then I'm going to tap on sync. Let's go back into the menu, and this time we're going to go to the wireless menu and click on that one and click wireless sync. And we're all set. Then we'll do the same thing here. Go into the menu, wireless, and scroll down to wireless sync and click on that one. And we're all set. So let's go back out. We'll tap the menu button here. Okay, now I'm going to assign this flash to group A, and I'm going to assign this flash to group B. I can go ahead and cancel out of this. So what that allows me to do is to fire these two separately and individually and be able to adjust the power individually. So by default, these are both on group A, so I just need to change this one to group B. So we'll just go into the menu, in the wireless menu again, so we'll click here, and we'll scroll up to the group, click on that and roll up, and now we're in group B. And you'll also see the LED lights change to the green color. So now we have group A and group B. Now in the X Pro 3, I'm going to change one more setting in the menu. So I'm going to go into the menu, and I'm going to change the trigger distance to 0 to 30 meters because I'm working in a small space here. So I want to minimize the number of misfires. So I'm going to set the wireless trigger to 0 to 30 meters. And one other thing, since I'm only going to be using two lights, I don't really need group C displayed here. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off just by touching there. And now I just want to do a quick test. So I'm going to hit the test fire button here and check each one. Everything looks good. And now I'm ready to set these up into the studio. All right, so let me go over the basic setup. Here I'm working in about a 10 foot by 10 foot space. I have a little bar stool here. I have this set maybe about 5 feet from the backdrop. And then I have my two lights here, the AD100 Pro 2s with the light stand adapter and two light stands. And these are adjustable up to about, I think, 7 feet. And then of course, my two umbrellas. So we're going to set up the first light here, which I assigned to group A as my key light. And I'm going to put this roughly about 45 degrees to my left from where I'll be sitting for the self-portrait. So do that right about there. And then of course I'm sitting directly in front of the camera here, which is right there. All right, so let's go ahead and put the umbrella in. Okay, when I insert the umbrella, I want to set it as far away as I can from the head of the flash. That way the light spreads to the maximum circumference possible to fill the umbrella with light. And these are shoot-through umbrellas, so about half the light will get out through this side and half the light's going to be reflected backwards. And then let's go ahead and raise this up. And we'll talk about how I decide what height I'm going to use. Once I have this up a little bit, I'm going to tilt this light down about 45 degrees. Roughly about like that. Looks good. And then let's go ahead and set the height. Now for the height, I like the bottom of the umbrella to be somewhere between my chin and my nose, or right about where my mouth is where I like the bottom of the umbrella to be. So I'm going to go ahead and sit down next to the stand and just check it. And I'm pretty close. It's a little bit below my chin. I'm going to set it up just a little bit higher, right about there. And just a little bit higher. Okay, good. So now this feels like it's right about where my chin, or somewhere between my chin and my nose. Now the reason I choose this height is because I don't want it so high that the light's going to be coming down and creating dark circles under my eyes. And I don't want it so low so that the light's coming up and looks a little bit unnatural or scary. So this is a good angle. And also when I have it at this height, because the umbrella is below where my eyes are, I'll also get a nice catch light in my eyes. Now as far as the distance goes, I'm going to set the light so that the tip of the umbrella is roughly about arm's length away. So let me go ahead and center the chair and make sure this is where I want it to be first. And I'm going to set the chair about 5 feet from the back. And I'm going to line it up in the camera. And I'm just looking at the screen here. And yep, that looks good. So I need this to go back about 1.5 feet. And again, I'm setting this up to be about right there. Perfect. Good. So that should create a nice light on my left side with a nice soft fall off to my right with a little bit of shadow on this side. Now for the second light here, I have this assigned again to group B. I'm just going to set this roughly parallel with the key light, and we'll use this as a fill light if we want. And this one I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to set it to the same exact height as the first one. And that looks about right. Go ahead and tilt it down. And we'll insert the umbrella exactly the same way. And just use that as a fill light over here. And I'm just going to, like I said, just make it parallel. And then one other thing I should mention is generally, on the bottom of the light stand, you have the one leg facing out front. And you want the umbrella to be facing over the front leg. That's the most stable way to do this, particularly since I'm not using any weights or anything to hold these down. And that's because, the umbrella and the AD100 Pro 2 is a very, very lightweight setup to begin with. And I'm going to point this again, and I want the light, the tip of the umbrella to be facing directly onto me like this. Now for my camera settings, I'm going to be shooting in full manual mode. So I'm going to be controlling the shutter speed, the aperture, and the ISO. And these are the settings I always start with any kind of photo shoot when I'm using flash. And then I make adjustments from there. Now in the studio, this is almost 99% of the time, this is what I use. The shutter speed is set to 1/250th of a second. This is the maximum sync speed on my camera. Some cameras it's like 1/200th or even 1/160th. But most cameras can handle 1/250th. You need to check your owner's manual to see what the sync speed is for your camera. And then for aperture, I always like to use f5.6. Sometimes I do f8 if I'm outdoors, but usually I start at f5.6. And then for my ISO, I always use the base ISO of my camera. In this case, my base ISO is 200. A lot of cameras are at 100. Some are at 125 or 160. Again, you need to check your manual, but you want to maximize your image quality across the board here with these settings. I'm just going to choose all focus points with face detect. Specifically, I'm using left eye detect because that's the side I'm going to be shooting on with the key light. Continuous autofocus, mechanical shutter, and I'm going to be shooting RAW plus JPEG. But the important settings are up here. Manual mode, 1/250th a second, f5.6, ISO 200. And what I want to achieve with these settings is to eliminate all of the ambient light that's in the room right now, including the video lights that I'm using. So I'm going to take a test shot with the flash disabled. So let's go ahead and go back into live view mode. And what I want to see when I take a picture here is a black screen. So now I have a completely black image, meaning no ambient light is coming in using the settings that I have. So the next thing I need to do is set my flash settings or flash power output settings. All right, let's go ahead and power on the X3 Pro trigger. The AD100 Pro 2s have a power range between 1/256 and full power. So if I'm going to increase this, I can increase this in thirds of a stop. For example, that's full power there. I can go back down. This is half power, quarter power, and so on. My starting point, I always like to start at 1/16 power, generally speaking. So I'm going to do that. So I'm at 1/16 power. This is kind of somewhere in the middle of the range, and that gives me a little room to make it brighter if I need to, or make it darker if I need to. But I'm going to start at 1/16 power. And for now, I'm just going to turn off the flash B or the fill light and see what we get with just the key light by itself to make sure we're getting the kind of light that I want to get. All right, so I think we're ready now for a test shot. All right, so I'm just going to do a casual pose here. And I have a remote trigger here in my pocket. So let me lean back maybe like this. Okay, not bad. So I think maybe I want it just a little bit brighter, about a third of a stop. Do a test. All right, looks good. All right, let's try one more. Okay, not bad. Now, let's try something with the fill light here. Now for the fill light, typically I like this to be 2 or 3 stops lower. They're pretty close together. Maybe I'll move this over just a little bit more, like so. And I'm going to set the fill light. Let's try 3 stops lower because I kind of like that shadow that I had in here on the right side of my face, but I want to get just a little bit more fill light in there. So we'll go over here to the trigger. We'll turn on flash B. And we're at 1/16 here. So we want to be, let's see, 3 stops would be 32, 64, 1/128, and a third. Okay, let's try that. All right, very nice. All right, now let's get a little creative. I'm going to go ahead and move the second light behind me to create a rim light instead of using it as a fill light. And I like a little harsher rim light, so I'm going to go ahead and just remove the umbrella. And maybe I'll move the rim light. Let's see. Let's move it on. I'll put it parallel with the key light. And then I'm going to just look from here and make sure it's lined up. All right, now since I took the umbrella off, I want a little tighter beam because I don't want too much to spill onto the background. So I can minimize that by zooming the flash head in from the remote trigger. So let's do that. So I'll just go into the B here, tap on the zoom, and we'll just hit 200 millimeters. The maximum is actually 85, but if you put it to 200, it'll zoom as far as it's possible. All right, so let's try a test shot here. All right, let's try one more thing, and I'm going to go ahead and put the AD100 Pro 2 behind me to kind of create a little bit of a glow on the background. And I don't really need to change the power. We're already pretty low at 1/128. And since I'm sitting in front of it, you're not going to see it in the frame. I think that's pretty good there. And then the only other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change the zoom and make it as wide as possible in this case. So I just set it to 24. All right, very nice. All right, let's do one more lighting setup, but this time using the Godox 72-inch white reflective umbrella. As you can imagine, this is going to give a much softer light because following the principle, the larger the light source, the softer the light. However, this offers some really distinct advantages over these smaller umbrellas. First is, of course, the much softer light, because it's just wrapping your subject, completely around in light. But also, it's much more even. So when I was using the smaller umbrella, I was just sitting in this chair, and you may have noticed that, yeah, my face and shoulders are properly exposed, but as we go down to my feet, they were a little bit underexposed. And the problem gets worse if I'm doing a standing shot. If I want to do a full body shot, yeah, my face and shoulders will be properly exposed, but by the time we get down to the floor, we're going to be grossly underexposed by probably 2, maybe even 3 stops difference. So that's one issue with the smaller umbrellas if you want to do full body shots, and you have to get like another second umbrella or light to get an even exposure. No big deal, right? But if you have one big umbrella, you're going to get nice even lighting from head to toe. You're going to get softer lighting that wraps all the way around. And also, it gives you a lot of flexibility in your workflow. And what I mean is, once I set up the flash power output and, position the light where I want it to be, it doesn't matter if the model, you're going to do multiple shots where the model's standing, sitting, or maybe sitting on the floor. You don't have to move the umbrella. Like this one, I would have to adjust the height or change the power output, and the light's not going to be as soft. Whereas with this one, I can leave it where it is. I don't have to change the power output, whether the model's standing, sitting, or sitting on the floor. I'm going to get the same exposure of even lighting. And this is also commonly used for group shots where you might have like 4 to 6 people lined up side to side. Everybody from one side to the other are going to be evenly lit, and you don't have to worry about it. Whereas something like this, if I were to use just one umbrella small like this, the people standing on the right side near the umbrella are going to be properly exposed, right? But then as soon as you get over to the third and fourth person, they're going to be underexposed quite a bit. So you'd have to bring in a second light. But of course, with that convenience in your workflow, it kind of brings a little bit of overhead, right? You need a much sturdier light stand. If you're outdoors, you're definitely going to need some sandbags, maybe 20 pounds of weight to hold this down. And you're going to need a stronger bracket. Godox came out with this new S3 bracket, but the S2, the S3, either one is perfectly fine. The S3 is just a little smaller and lighter than the S2. So if you're going to buy one, I would just recommend get the newer S3 because it is smaller and lighter. Anyway, let's do a couple of shots using large umbrellas. You can see what I mean, and we'll compare it against, say, using a single 22-inch umbrella. And then we'll use the second light like we did before as either rim lighting or as a background light. All right, so let's start with the small umbrella. And I had to adjust the height quite a bit to maintain the chin level that I talked about earlier. And I have the rim light set up back here. And I don't have to change the flash power or anything. I can still use that 1/16 and a third, so long as I maintain the same distance, which was about arm's length. So let's go ahead and take the shot. So as you can see, I have pretty good exposure on my face with a nice fall off to the right. But, everything from my hands down is really underexposed. So let's switch over to the large umbrella. All right, so I've mounted the AD100 Pro 2 into the S3 bracket, and I put the flash head roughly flush with the front of the bracket. And then I've also extended the umbrella as far out as possible to maximize the spread of light into the umbrella. So now, because this is roughly 3 times the diameter of the small umbrella, I'm going to have to increase the power output by at least 1 stop. I'm guessing maybe 2 stops. So if we're at 1/16 power now, I'd have to go to 1/8 and then 1/4 to be a full 2 stops. So let's try that. And I'm going to stand in roughly the same position. Okay, not bad. And as you can see, I'm pretty well evenly lit, but I think I need to maybe reduce the power output, maybe a full stop. I kind of overestimated there, so let's try that. I'm going to go down to 1/8 and a third. And we'll do one more shot, and that should give me the look that I want. All right, perfect. And as you can see, I'm very evenly lit from head to toe with a little extra light from the rim light. Now, I've only scratched the surface on what you can do with just 1 or 2 lights, let alone, 3 or 4 lights. But that said, I want to make a couple of comments on the AD100 Pro 2 here. I mean, this is an excellent flash for indoor studio use. It has more than enough power, even for a large light modifier like this Godox 72-inch umbrella. You know, I was only at 1/8 power, and I had 3 more stops of light that I could have went to. You know, I could have went to 1/4, 1/2, or even full power if I needed it. And I can't imagine I would ever need that much light in a studio situation like this, or even on location. Now, that said, if you were thinking about using this large umbrella like this outdoors, I would strongly recommend a bigger flash, something like an 8400 or 8600 even, for these large modifiers, because when you go outdoors, the ambient light is much brighter, and you know, you might need to go into high-speed sync, you might need to use an ND filter, and in that case, this is not going to be enough. So you will need a much more powerful flash, and that's why the 8600 is a very popular flash as well. But that said, I really love the 8100 Pro 2 because it's so portable and lightweight and compact. And, you know, I can take 2 of these 8100 Pro 2s, 2 of these, you know, light stands with the umbrellas, and put these into one little bag here and take it with me on location. And I have done that many, many times and gotten great portrait sessions out of it. So I can highly recommend the 8100 Pro 2 if you like to shoot in a studio or like to go on location indoors. But for outdoors, I'd recommend like an 8600 if you want to use a big umbrella like this. So anyhow, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.